The following program presents principles designed to promote good health and is not intended to take the place of personalized professional care. The opinions and ideas expressed are those of the speaker. Viewers are encouraged to draw their own conclusions about the information presented.
Hello and welcome to Health for a Lifetime. I'm your host, Don McIntosh. We're glad you're with us today. And I'm also delighted to have Dr. Zeno Charles Marcel with us. He is the medical director of the Lifestyle Center of America.
Yes.
Now that's a mouthful.
Yes.
And yet it's a good mouthful. Lifestyle Center of America is located in Oklahoma, is that right?
In Oklahoma, midway between Oklahoma City and Dallas.
It's a great, easy place to get to, and there's a lot of good things that happen there. If you're interested in getting in touch with the Lifestyle Center of America, the best place to contact would be their webpage, www.lifestylecenter.org, all one word, lifestylecenter.org, or you could call us here at 3ABN, and we'll give you some contact phone numbers. Today, Dr. Zeno, we're going to talk about what you like to call total health, or the health iceberg.
Yes.
And we'll hope that iceberg heats up. But really, an iceberg, you can just see the top of it, but underneath there's a whole bunch of other things. Maybe that's why you call it that.
That's correct.
Is total health like that, that what you see is not necessarily what you get?
That's what it is. A lot of times people are very interested in what the top might look like, their health status. And really, the health status is nothing more than what we see or what the person might experience. And if you were to go to the doctor would usually tell you what your health status is like. It's like a snapshot of how things are going.
That's just the top. I mean, could you have someone that's very thin, that's very unhealthy?
Yes, you can. People think that, if you're slender, that this is an indicator of health, and sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not. People with cancer, for instance, can lose a lot of weight and become very slender. They might say, oh, well, finally I'm losing weight. But is that the way you really want to lose weight if you have cancer?
Can someone who's very obese, or not obese, but very overweight, could they be healthy?
They could be moderately healthy, but we believe that for someone to have total health, that really, in the physical realm, that they ought to have a weight that is within what we would call normal and optimal for them, and usually that's not overweight.
Now we want to look at sort of like a pyramid here about total health, right?
Yes.
So if someone was drawing a picture at home, they'd draw a pyramid using these different words that we're going to use. Is that right?
That's correct.
It's kind of acronym. And which way do we want to work, from the base or from the top down?
Well, I think it's easier to start with the top and go down.
All right, let's start at the top. What's the tip of the iceberg? What do we see?
The tip of the iceberg is the health status. When someone goes to the doctor and they want to find out how they're doing, the doctor will usually ask them some questions, get a history, would do a physical exam, do some laboratory tests, and then make a pronouncement. As some people like to say, clean bill of health, right? So the person gets a clean bill of health. But have you ever heard of someone getting a clean bill of health only to have a few days or a few weeks later that the person has a serious problem, like cancer was diagnosed, or a heart attack, or they even drop dead? Mm-hmm. Have you heard of that happening?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I've heard of others going to the doctor and kind of like trying to act like they're healthy when they're not, and sneaking
and fool
past.
The system. Right. So the health status, that tip of the iceberg, if you will, is like a snapshot. Now, what we like to delve into is what kinds of things favor the health that the doctor would see or that you would find.
So that's the second level.
That's the second level.
Which would be like, what, habits?
Habits, that's precisely it. If you can tell what habits people have, then you'll be able to tell whether or not they're likely to be fit, whether they're likely to be trim, whether they're likely to have to be enjoying good total health. If you look at their physical habits, you look at their eating habits, you look at what things they take or what things they don't take, you look at their spiritual health, their social life, you look at all of these things, you can more or less have a pretty good idea as to whether this person is going to be healthy or not.
So if you opened up all their mail coming out of their house. You could probably tell if they're healthy or not.
I don't know if that'll be enough to tell, but that might give us a start.
And then you see how much they sleep. You watch their habits. You just watch them for a while.
Yes.
So as a doctor, you have to get in touch with those types of things very rapidly. And do you have a way to go about that? How do you figure out what people's habits are when they come to your office?
Well, typically we would, for instance, at the Lifestyle Center, we have a questionnaire that we have patients fill out. That's 18 pages long. Can you believe that?
18 pages
18
long.
pages of issues relating to their life. And one of the last page of that is actually for the person to describe a typical day. So what time they get up, what they do as they go through the day, and then what time they go to bed. You'll be surprised how much you can learn from something as simple as that, or as much as 18 pages of information.
Is that thing worded so that if they try and fudge in one area, they get caught in another question?
No, it's not like that.
Okay.
But most people who fill it out, actually everybody fills it out, and they do a pretty thorough job, and they get a copy of it back if they want it, because for many of them, this is the first time that they've ever sat down and really taken a self-inventory and have it explained to them what these things might be in terms of their impact on the person's total health.
Someone has told me that an accurate diagnosis is about 85% accurate health history. Is that right?
It depends on what kind of illness we're talking about. By and large, that is true. Mm-hmm. For some of the dermatologic illnesses, for instance, oftentimes the history is irrelevant. You look at it, you see it, you say this is what it is, and that's it.
Yeah, okay. So, looking then at the status, first of all, and what it looks like that snapshot, but really that's not as good a snapshot as looking at the actual habits.
That's right.
Where do we go next?
Well, the next thing is, for most people, they find that even if they know what things they ought to do to keep their health optimal, or what things they need to do to gain or regain optimal health, oftentimes we have difficulty doing the things that we know to do, right? You know, people say, for instance, I know I should be doing this, but, and they go ahead and they do the things that they shouldn't do.
What I would like to do, that I don't do, and I see another thing warring against my flesh. That's what Paul said.
Exactly, and that's Romans chapter 7. And I'm glad that it doesn't stop in Romans chapter 7, even though it gives us, I guess, a little bit of consolation that we're not the only ones involved.
Went through
in this.
that.
That's right. So part of what we all need to pay attention to is the fact that knowing, just having information about something is oftentimes not enough to get us to change. Rather, there's something below that's pushing our habits, and we have our habits formed to a large extent from the people around us, from how we grow up, etc. You see, we inherit more than just genes.
So this would be our culture.
This is our culture.
So in other words, if we are Eskimos, for instance, they have certain liabilities in their culture about what they eat that's going to cause problems in their health.
That's correct.
Like what would that be? I don't know if you know about Eskimos or.
Oh, yes, I know some about Eskimos. First of all, Eskimos don't have a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables in their diet, and therefore they tend to have some of the B vitamin deficiencies and so on that is associated with that. They tend to, because of the amount of fish and so on that they do have in their diets, and for some of the fats that they have, if they get a stroke, the kind of stroke tends to be a hemorrhagic stroke, as opposed to the kinds of stroke that we get in this.
So someone like me, you're looking right at me, you're doing a snapshot in your mind, you're saying this is a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, looks like so-called WASP. What are my liabilities in my culture?
Well, it will also depend on what part of the country you come from.
Okay, I'm from Kansas.
You're from Kansas.
I got real problems, huh? Call the ambulance. No, what's wrong with me?
Well, rather than making it personal for you, I would.
I'm trying to get some free advice here.
All right, I would suggest that what we do is we start with the inner circle.
Okay.
Because people's families tend to have certain things that they do. It's what is called normal. See, in your family, it might be done this way. In the family next door, same kind of activity, but they do it a different way. Right?
Okay.
In one family, people may sit down and eat. In another family, it's catch as you can. Right? Those two will have different effects on the individuals growing up.
We sit down and eat, so how am I doing?
Okay, that's better.
Okay.
All right? Spending time with calm, quiet composure as you eat actually is beneficial to your health. Eating on the run tends not to be as good for the digestion.
So the big point is then there's looking at those health habits, what we do around our family table, what we are used to doing.
Right. These things are important. Additionally, we inherit such things as attitudes. In some families, the attitude towards exercise is one that is very positive. People like to go outdoors and they bike or they run or they hike or things like that. In other families, as Mark Twain said, every so often he gets an overwhelming urge to exercise. You know the rest of the story?
But then it passes.
Then he quickly lies down until it passes, you see. Well, in some families, this is the idea, exercise and physical activity is really not emphasized a lot, and therefore, people growing up in that environment, by and large, will tend to pass that on to their children and actually have that habit as part of their
So would
own
this
lifestyle.
count? I was in a family the other week where the man said, I always feel bad for these joggers. He just had moved to America. He's from a different culture. He said, I always felt bad. Here they are running. It seems like someone's out to get them. They're after them. And he was stopping, offering them a ride to wherever they wanted to go. And he found out that they just didn't want to ride. So from his culture, this was really not going to be helpful with his exercise program. Okay. So this more is not talking about ethnic cultures or this kind of thing. It's talking more about the habits of a family or people group.
And it actually involves some of the ethnicity and some of the regions. See, we could start with the family, then we can go to the neighborhood, and we can go from the neighborhood to the part of town that you live. You can go from the part of town to the town that you live, to the city, to the part of the country that you live, to the country that you live, even to the region in the world that you live. See? Because all of these things kind of interplay with each other for people who live in a particular place to think that what they're doing is actually normal.
True or false? America is a high-risk culture.
Depends on what you're talking about.
Health-wise?
Health-wise, yes, because of the so-called Western lifestyle. But that is changing. Fortunately, that is changing. If you were to look at American culture from the point of view of cleanliness and hygiene, that's much better, right, much better than in some places where that is a major issue. If you look at opportunity for exercise and reasonable food, etc., in the United States we can get just about anything to eat that we want. The problem is we also have an attitude about food that goes beyond eating just for health. We have an attitude of eating for pleasure, eating for value. When people go into a buffet restaurant, right? They change from being ordinary people in the street. All right? When they walk through those doors, they want to put those folks out of business.
And they want to get their money's worth. And
I shouldn't say they, I should say we, because we're all in it.
And they do get their money's worth, too.
Yeah.
You are what you eat. Well, okay, so we're looking at our pyramid here. We've got status. That's that snapshot. We've got habits. You get that from kind of a health history. What do you do day in, day out? But then more than that, where did you get your habits? That being your family group, your people group, your country group, your ethnic group, your geographical location group, whatever.
Right.
Okay, so we're kind of moving down.
Now, here's the thing. When we look at culture, we have a phenomenon that everybody might be familiar with in some way or another. And this I call the Uncle Harry situation. Uncle Harry is that person in a family that folks don't talk too much about.
Okay, Uncle Harry. We want to come back to Uncle Harry. We're talking with Dr. Zeno Charles Marcel, and he's going to talk about Uncle Harry. So if you wanted to know about Uncle Harry, you better come back and join us after the break.
Have you found yourself wishing that you could shed a few pounds? Have you been on a diet for most of your life, but not found anything that will really keep the weight off? If you've answered yes to any of these questions, then we have a solution for you that works. Dr. Hans Diehl and Dr. Eileen Ludington have written a marvelous booklet called Reversing Obesity Naturally, and we'd like to send it to you free of charge. Here's a medically sound approach successfully used by thousands who were able to eat more and lose weight permanently without feeling guilty or hungry through lifestyle medicine. Dr. Diehl and Dr. Ludington have been featured on 3ABN, and in this booklet, they present a sensible approach to eating, nutrition, and lifestyle changes that can help you prevent heart disease, diabetes, and even cancer. Call or write today for your free copy of Reversing Obesity Naturally, and you could be on your way to a healthier, happier you. It's absolutely free of charge, so call or write today.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Don McIntosh. This is Health for a Lifetime. If you just joined us, and we have a delightful treat today. We are learning about really total health. Isn't that right, Dr.
That's
Marcel?
correct.
Zeno Charles Marcel.
Zeno Charles.
And we're glad that you're with us. He's the medical director of the Lifestyle Center of America, and that's the same thing that you would put in if you were looking up their webpage, www.lifestylecenter.org. So if you'd like to find out more about their programs and different things, you can do that. We're talking about health and total health today, and we're seeing that there's more than just meets the eye. There's more to the iceberg than just the top, as those on the Titanic wanted to really know beforehand, right?
That's correct.
And they learned too late. But today we're finding out where the icebergs are so we don't hit them.
That's correct.
All right, so we've moved down now. The first one, if I recall, was our health status. That's when you go to the doctor's office, they take your EKG, they take your blood pressure, they take your pulse, they take your history, that kind of thing, and they said that's just one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
And you said you need to go deeper than that, look at the habits. Have that 18-page questionnaire or whatever, a lifestyle questionnaire that shows what are your all habits. And then the next part of the pyramid is your culture, and that doesn't just mean ethnic group, although it can be that. It can be more or less your family patterns of doing things, how you eat, how you sleep, how you drink, whatever you do.
Right.
But that can be geographic and everything else. So that's the next step on the picture of who we really are and why we are what we are. And you were mentioning when we left Uncle Harry, but we left him hanging on the wall.
All right.
Well, who is this Uncle Harry? Let's go
talk about
recap
Uncle
on that.
Harry. The way we see Uncle Harry is that if you were to look at a picture of an extended family, Uncle Harry might be the guy standing in the back who isn't dressed exactly the same way as everybody else.
He's got the plaid pants on.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
And when people are saying, you know, this is dad, and this is mom, and this is cousin so-and-so, and this is uncle so-and-so, and aunt so-and-so, right, they tend to forget Uncle Harry.
Even though he has plaid pants on.
Even though it's obvious that, you know, there's something going on here. And typically, someone looking at this, or they see several pictures, and they say, well, you know, who is this guy, right?
Yes.
And the answer is, oh, well, that's Uncle Harry. And they move on to the next page.
And you want more information about
Yeah,
why is he so different?
Yeah, what is this guy all about? Well, let me ask you, in your family, if you were to look back at your family tree over, let's say, 4 or 5 generations.
Okay. That's a scary thought for some.
Is
Yes.
there a dominant pattern of, let's say, occupations in that family?
Well, we all eat. Does that count?
Well, that's one. You have to eat to live, right?
Oh, I am a 4th generation pastor. Does that count?
Yes, that counts. So in your family, then, if you were to look at, I would assume it's mainly the males in the family that have become pastors?
Yes, we don't have any lady pastors.
Okay. So
I think they probably would not. They would be the Aunt Harry. All right.
Yeah, so there's an Aunt Harriet too, right?
All right.
But if you look down, right,
Okay.
that is a dominant feature.
Right.
The expectation in some families is that, well, whenever we have, if there's a son that's born, he'll be a pastor too. If that is the thought, then to have one of these young men decide to become a plumber might be considered strange. Like, why is he doing that?
Nothing wrong with being a plumber, is there?
Obviously not. There's nothing wrong with being a plumber. But in that family, if the expectation was for pastors, then plumber is different.
You know, let me tell you that. Maybe I shouldn't tell you this, but in my family, I remember coming home from one of these graduations where you have to fill out what your secret ambition is. You know what I put down?
No.
An auto mechanic. Now, anybody that knows me is laughing right now because they know all my cars end up, you know, in the injured reserve list. But when I got home and that yearbook came out, and I had put down auto mechanic, everybody in my family just looked at me like,
what's wrong with you, right?
I'm going to be an auto mechanic. Anyway, but there's still
But you see,
time.
that's the idea.
Okay,
you see?
so
So being Uncle Harry is not bad.
No.
Okay. In some cases, it might be.
No.
But by and large, the issue is being different. Now, where I come to this understanding with regard to culture is that we all have Uncle Harry in us. Because we all don't do things exactly the way our parents did it.
We all want to live a little bit. We want to have those plaid pants. We want to be those auto mechanics. We want to be those
That's right.
plumbers. Forget being those pastors.
All right, so we do something a little bit different.
Yeah, okay.
Okay?
All right.
And by doing things a little bit different, it shows what's below this culture. You see, culture does not determine everything that we are. There is something below that, and that's our own minds, our psyche, and our will.
Now, are we getting to the bottom of the...
We're not at the bottom yet.
We're not at the bottom.
But here is an area where individuals actually have a choice to make in determining what's going to be happening in their future. In this case, we're talking about health, but it has wide implications for all other aspects of life as well.
So our values and our psyche, how can we change those things if they're wrong? You know, what if we're, you know, a type of person that wants the breaded pudding, but now we need to move to broccoli?
All right. Well, you see, there's where we have to come a little bit lower again. And this is where we get to the bottom of this iceberg. The bottom of the iceberg is actually our worldview.
Okay.
Now, worldview is nothing more than the way we see ourselves fitting into the world and the way we see the world impacting on us. It's where we are, who we are, what we are, where we came from, where we're going. In our best moments, when we sit and reflect as to the meaning of life, this is where we're residing. We're residing in this place that we call our worldview.
Do you think most people do that in some sense, sometime in their life?
I think most people have a period of time in their life where this is an issue. As a matter of fact, for some people, they get to this point when they're sick. They have to take inventory, and they get to the point of thinking, well, you know, why am I alive anyway? Right? Now, in this area, this worldview area, I see 3 points that are pivotal in people's understanding and appreciation of what this is about.
Okay, this is the bottom
This
of
is
the
the
iceberg.
bottom of the iceberg.
And we're 3 points at the basis
At the
of
base.
the iceberg.
One is hope.
Okay.
A second, hope. A second is meaning.
Hope, meaning,
And a third is purpose.
and purpose.
See, people have to have a purpose for living. As we say, if someone comes to see the doctor and they don't have a reason for getting up in the morning, pretty soon they won't be getting up in the morning. The story is told over and over again of husbands and wives. Of course, they've married for 67 years. Husband got a stroke. Wife is taking care of the husband. The children say, "Come and live with us." The wife says, "No, I can take care of Dad. We'll do fine. We've been, we get around here. We do all right." Husband then dies. And mom says, "I'm not going to come anywhere. I'm going to take care of things here at home," right? But mom, within
No
a
longer
year,
has a purpose.
doesn't have a purpose for getting up in the morning. Within a year, mom dies. Why? Now, this doesn't always happen, but it's often enough that we have to ask the question. Part of the reason is that if mom doesn't have a reason to get up in the morning, mom is not going to get up in the morning. Okay? For us, it may not be an issue of life and death like that, but if we don't have a purpose for living, why live? If we don't have a purpose to be healthy, why be healthy? The second issue is that of meaning. What's the meaning of life? What's the meaning of living?
That's related to purpose, but it's not the same.
But it's not the same. Another issue, of course, along the same lines in that meaning, is if I were to get sick or if something were to happen, what's the meaning of that? Is it trying to tell me something? Is there something bigger than meets the eye? And this is the idea of, for instance, some people say, well, this happened, therefore it's giving me a warning that I ought to take care of X, Y, or Z. It's like the little cues and what we ascribe to it. See? And some people say, well, it's just coincidence. Others say it's luck. But many people go beyond that and they say, you know what, I think that there's something here that's beyond that, that I'm being stimulated to do something different.
So my grandfather, when he moved in with me, I took care of him when he turned about 86 or so, and he said, he'd get up in the morning, he says, "I guess the reason I'm still here is for you boys." And then when we would do something good, he says, that means everything for him, to me. Those were the kind of things.
Right.
When we graduated from school, then he died.
Yeah, because he probably had come
like
to the
he
point of...
Met the goal.
Right. Now this is not, it's not an issue of self-determination or anything like that, or kind of like a precondition. It's just that the way human beings are, we have an engine, okay? And purpose and meaning are two parts that help drive that meaning, that engine. A third part is that of hope. Now, the word hope might be a little bit difficult for many people to work with because we use it in other ways. We say, I hope
this would happen.
Yeah, I hope this would happen or that would happen. But really, having a sense of hope is really having a belief that tomorrow is going to be better than today, or a belief that the next minute is going to be better than this one. Okay? If we lack hope, the research has shown people who don't have hope actually have more illness. People who have a hopeful attitude these people tend to flourish with their health.
Remember that story of Jesus where he was with the two disciples and they were going along and they were discouraged because they thought he had died.
That's right.
And then he said, they said, we were hoping that this would happen. We were hoping. They were hopeless. And then he kind of switched them around.
That's
Is
right.
that what you try and do there at the Lifestyle Center?
That's what we try to do.
Try and switch around people's hope?
And one of the biggest things that we can do for people is actually to help them restore if they had hope and they lost it, or if they had not had hope before, to gain hope. That there is something that they can do, there is a way to look at life, there is a way of looking at yourself and looking at your relationship to everything else, to all that is created, right, that allows you to look towards a better tomorrow. Now that hope is actually based on nothing less than Jesus Christ.
And people have to discover that, don't they?
They have to discover that. And in my view, you don't force this on somebody, you don't push it, you don't shove it down their throats. Actually, they come to the point of saying, yes, I understand there is something to life, there is something bigger than me. Now, when this happens and their worldview changes, okay, the worldview pushes the will, changes the values. The person is now able to do the things that they thought that they couldn't do before. They're willing to confront their culture and take out the things from their culture that, and hold on to those that are health enhancing, and reject and put aside the things that are not health enhancing. This in turn will change their habits. They find almost effortlessly, effortlessly, that they are now more inclined to do what they thought they should have done because it's the right. They do the right thing for the right reason. And this ultimately will reflect in what happens to their total health.
It could be a complete switching of the iceberg.
That's correct.
Amazing.
Because as you start with the bottom, this becomes the root. And the health that you experience, the total health that you experience, now that becomes the fruit.
And that's what we need, fruitful lives.
That's right.
Completely repositioned. That's what you've dedicated your life to.
Yes.
You know, as I study the story of Christ and how he related to his apostles and the disciples, that's really what he dedicated his life to as well. And in that story in Luke where he was with the disciples, and remember how they were all discouraged and depressed, and this whole thing turned around. They didn't know who he was, and then it was like he came to them as a cardiologist and said, let me open the word to you, and defibrillated them, and then they started being happy. They turned the world upside down.
Amen.
They completely turned around. We hope that as a result of today's program, you'll go out there and seize the day, turn the world upside down, and you can address the real issues at the base of the mountain so that everything else makes sense. You have meaning, purpose, and hope. And if you would like to contact us about this program or about the Lifestyle Center of America, we hope that you do call us. And we hope that as a result, you'll have health that lasts for a lifetime.